A very good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington on Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. This is Live Talk. I am Kips Dube. Tonight on the Diaspora Forum, we are talking about President Emmerson Mnangagwa's participation at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, USA. Mnangagwa is scheduled to deliver his address tomorrow. He is expected to talk about targeted sanctions imposed by the West on ruling party officials following claims of election rigging and human rights violations. In the past, he has also tried to lure investors to open businesses in the Southern African nation. His calls for the removal of the sanctions have been ignored by the West. Observers say his calls are a waste of time. Kuhlelo lwabadabuka eZimbabwe abahlala kwamanye amazwe namhla sixoxa ngomhlangano omkhulu we-United Nations General Assembly owenziwa khonapha-ke kwelemelika eNew York. Umongameli Emmerson Mnangagwa usefikile emhlanganweni lo. Ukhangelwe ukuba uza kukhuluma ngezijezo zenotho lokunye. Uvame ukukhuluma ngalokhu emihlanganweni yonke ye-United Nations. Kulabanye abantu abathi akulanto ebambekayo eyenziwe nguMnangagwa selokhu wangena imihlangano leyo. Kodwa abakubandla leZANU-PF bathi kunenge okwenziwe nguMnangagwa. Like in the past, some African leaders are once again calling for the removal of the targeted sanctions, claiming that they are hurting all Zimbabweans. Senegalese leader Macky Sall is among African leaders calling for an end of the restrictive measures.
Furthermore, the African Union once again calls for the lifting of foreign sanctions against Zimbabwe. These harsh measures an entire people and to aggravate their suffering in these times of deep crisis.
Macky Sall is the president of Senegal. He made these remarks while addressing world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly. We spoke to Mr. Tafatswa Mgwadi, ZANU-PF Information and Communications Director, about Mnangagwa's participation at the United Nations General Assembly.
There is no doubt that the United Nations General Assembly meeting, which happens every year in September, is an important platform which shapes the relations between and among countries in the global family. Yes, Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for 22 years now. And yes, every time we have had the opportunity at the General Assembly, we have been unequivocal and categorical in calling on all those rogue countries that have imposed illegal sanctions on us to remove their sanctions because they are not serving any purpose. Sanctions by their very nature are primitive, barbaric, and an act of cowardice on those that are imposing them. We're so doing so to a small nation of innocent people like ours. But be that as it may, those who say that it's a waste of time, it's a waste of national resources, are you telling me that all nations of the world that go to the United Nations General Assembly to speak authoritatively about their foreign policy objectives and interests are doing so to waste resources? I don't think so. Never mind that the sanctions have not been removed as it were, but you cannot doubt that through the engagement and re-engagement agenda and policy strategy of President Emmerson Mnangagwa in the Second Republic, we have seen some aspects of the sanctions being eased. There is no doubt about that. And that is why we continue to call on those countries imposing sanctions on us to stop that and remove.
Information and Communications Director. And in New York today, U.S. President Joseph Biden attacked Russian leader Vladimir Putin for attempting to seize Ukraine.
A war chosen by one man, to be very blunt. Let us speak plainly. A permanent member of the United Nations Security Council invaded its neighbor, attempted to erase a sovereign state from the map, Russia has shamelessly violated the core tenets of the United Nations Charter. No more important than the clear prohibition against countries taking the territory of their neighbor by force. Again, just today, President Putin has made overt nuclear threats against Europe and a reckless disregard for the responsibilities of the non-proliferation regime. Now, Russia's calling up more soldiers to join the fight, and the Kremlin is organizing a sham referenda to try to annex parts of Ukraine, an extremely significant violation of the UN Charter.
That was US President Joseph Biden speaking at the United Nations General Assembly. Ngumnumzana Joseph Biden okhona ngale kwele United Nations General Assembly ubekhuluma sibile sethula amazwi akhe sithi okwenzakalayo khonokho kwele Ukraine kuyamangalisa kakhulu ngoba umkhokheli kwele Russia Vladimir Putin ukhanya ngazani sedinga amanye amabutho ukuthi ayefika khona ngale kwele Ukraine ayihlasela futhi endaweni eziningi. So uthi hayi ukhanya njalo uVladimir Putin uyethusela okunye okumangalisayo uthi uzasebenzisa izikhali ze-nuclear. So ke khonokho ke yiko ngani kuyahlupha. So for those that have just joined our show today, please note that we are streaming this discussion live on our Facebook pages, VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, and VOA Ndebele. We are also live on YouTube, VOA Zimbabwe. You can also find us on our websites, www.voandebele.com, www.voashona.com, and www.voazimbabwe.com. And send us our messages right now, your messages right now on all our social media platforms. Now joining us via Skype is Mr. Xavier. Xavier is there in USA. So Xavier Zoare is a member of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Gibbs. Pleasure to be with you once again. Hope you are well.
And thank you so much. We are well, and we hope you are well too in London. So tell us, we see that the president is here in New York for the United Nations General Assembly. But there are some people who are saying, you know what, he's going to talk about the same things. Sanctions, sanctions, and sanctions. What's your take on that?
Well, what we must know about the United Nations General Assembly is that it is an opportunity accorded to every member of the United Nations, which is the global family or the biggest global family there is since the end of the Second World War. And of course, as part of diplomatic engagement, President Mnangagwa is right to talk about sanctions. In any case, that is an opportunity to talk directly to those who impose the sanctions. That is the United States, the United Kingdom, and their European allies. So, and of course, to obtain support from fellow African countries, but also from international big hitters such as Russia, China, India, and many other countries who are sympathetic and empathetic to the pain and the untold suffering that these sanctions that have been targeted on the Zimbabwean people, targeted on the institutions of the Zimbabwean people that are key, such as the Zimbabwe defense industry, because CBZ, the commercial bank, has just sort of been given a bit of reprieve. But these sanctions, are painful and are real. Everyone who is talking about sanctions, from the president of Senegal, as you have heard, the president of DRC, you heard President Masisi when he was in Zimbabwe, and even last week you heard Hichilema as well talking about these sanctions on Zimbabwe. So the sanctions are for real and are targeted to cause the maximum pain on the Zimbabwean people.
So but according to
President Mnangagwa is right to engage on this issue.
But Mr. Zobare, according to the countries that imposed these targeted sanctions, they are saying they are only affected they are only affecting a few people in the ruling party. So that's their argument.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I know, Gibbs, you are a very intelligent man. So are a lot of other people listening. Do you really believe that nonsense? Okay, give me an example. Which are the targeted men that are affected? Last week, we had the Deputy Commissioner for ZRP administration being added on those sanctions. Currently, you've got the likes of Commissioner Matanga on that sanction list, and Ambassador Sanyatwe on those sanction lists. But these are just few individuals. You will probably even measure their influence on the Zimbabwe political landscape. Yeah, and it is very limited. So the people that are targeted or have been put on this sanction list, it's a divide and rule tactic by the United States, and two, it is just cosmetic, a propaganda machinery to imply that it is not the Zimbabwean people that are targeted, or it is not the Republic of Zimbabwe that is targeted, but a few individuals. But often I hear this argument and say to people, okay, tell me, name 1, 2, or 3 that you know, individuals that are targeted, that are so-called targeted individuals, and what effect they actually have on the political landscape.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Xavier Zobare. Stay on the line there. We're coming back to you shortly. We also have Mr. Itai Marombetsa. He's a member of the Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change, led by Nelson Chamisa. He's joining us via his mobile phone. Welcome to the show, Mr. Marombetsa.
Thank you, Gibbs. Thank you.
Yes, so what's your take on Mr. Mnangagwa's participation at the United Nations?
Okay. I should be very clear and say that this is mere routine where more than 157 heads of state, as per the United Nations protocols, are expected to participate. Mr. Mnangagwa, there isn't much that we should be expecting in terms of his contribution there, apart from the old and tired rhetoric of sanctions that they have been using as the regime in Harare as a smokescreen to hide behind their failures that are evident from the political perspective to the economic, which is very clearly there for anyone and everyone to see. This sanction narrative has become more like a religion, where whenever they clamp down on the constitutional rights of individuals and institutions, they are quick to go back and hide and talk about sanctions. So for us to expect anything beyond that same rhetoric from Mr. Mnangagwa, I think it will be like daydreaming.
Yeah, thank you very much. And stay on the line, don't go away. We are now joined by Mr. Ten Moyo via Skype. Mr. Moyo is an independent political commentator. Mr. Moyo, welcome to the program, sir.
One other thing, else maybe we could... thank you, Mr. Dube. Mr. Dube, can I join in like 5 minutes? I'm in the middle of a meeting.
No, that's okay. We'll get in touch shortly. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, let's see what people are saying on our social media platforms. There's Mlungisi Nzipo, who says Xavier Zobare must be sanctioned because he's saying a lot of things he doesn't agree with. And then we've got Obi Mgisa, who is saying the same thing. He says, yeah, we must sanction Mr. Xavier. He's saying things that he knows are not true. And then this is on the Ndebele page. On the Shona page, we've got also some people were commenting a lot there. So hopefully we'll get most of the messages and see where we can go. So roughly, Mr. Xavier Zowari, in Shona, people are saying, these sanctions, of course, people may say what they want, but ultimately it's a way of punishing ZANU-PF officials over claims of election rigging and human rights violations. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. We'll come back to you with that question. Let's just take a short break. And then we are going to take that kind of question. So let's take a break.
In New York for the annual United Nations General Assembly. Count on VOA to be there, delivering news you can trust on radio, TV and the web.
Des discours présidentiels aux entretiens en tête-à-tête avec des responsables gouvernementaux de haut niveau, nous vous tiendrons informés des développements importants touchant le continent.
Líderes africanos vão abordar tópicos como alterações climáticas, o estado da economia, saúde, iniciativas juvenis e muito mais.
Usikose kufuatilia habari na vipindi maalum katika lugha 16 tofauti kuhusu kongamano la viongozi moja kwa moja kutoka makao makuu ya Umoja wa Mataifa mjini New York na Washington DC. Tutakuarifu kila tukio.
A free press is essential. VOA Africa.
Yes, we are back after a very short break. Let's go back to Mr. Zowari. So the question before the break was that, many people are saying these sanctions are designed to punish ZANU-PF officials because there are claims that there's a lot that is happening in Zimbabwe. Right now, Job Scala is in and others, they've been locked up. And still people are saying there's a lot of violence, that is being perpetrated by the ruling party and other people related to it. So why not change, so that you get what you want and the sanctions are lifted, Mr. Zowari? Briefly, in Shona?
Chinonetsa Gibbs ndechekuti izvochi pamwe pacho tinenge takufanira kutombopanana zvidzidzo in terms of kuti nyika dzinoranwa sei, dzinofamba sei, uye kuti zvii chaizvo zviri kuitika. Vazhinji vamwe vari kukomenta nekutaura, it's sad and unfortunate kuti vanoita sei vakachangamuka, vanoita sei vane ruzivo asi vasina ruzivo. Nyaya yekunetswa yekupanishwa kweZimbabwe nemasanctions haina chekuita nezvinhu zvese zvamuri kutaura zvema-elections. In fact, ZANU-PF brought democracy, ndo yakaunza kutonga kusununguka nekuzvitonga kuzere nekuti munhu mutema agone kuita sarudzo yekuvhota. Zvakaunzwa neZANU-PF izvozvo. Ma-allies kana kuti shamwari dzeAmerica neUnited Kingdom neEurope dzakaita sana Saudi Arabia, hakuna chinhu chinonzi ma-elections zvachose. Hakuna that level yedemocracy seyatiinayo isusu kuZimbabwe, iri constitutional, iri mubumbiro remutemo wedu isusu. But vanhu vazhinji vanokomenta nekuda kwekusaziya. President Mnangagwa basa ravari kuita iko zvino izvi kuUnited Nations rekutsvaga kuti masanctions abviswe, ravari kuita iko zvino izvi rekutsvaga kuti izvo tikwanise kuingenja nedzimwe nyika tichitengeserana pamwe chete nekupambidzana nadzo mune zvakanaka. Havasi kuitira ini semember yeZANU-PF only, vari kuitira wese mwana weZimbabwe anonzi mwana wewo.
Yes, so
ndozvinhu zvatinofanira kunzwisisa izvozvo.
Right.
Kuti izvo ZANU-PF sebato riri kutonga iko zvinei, ndiro bato rakatargetwa nekuda kwekuti riri kuita zvinhu zvevanhu, kupa minda, land reform, inova ndochikonzera.
I'll cut you short there. Yes, I'll cut you short. I'll come back to you. Let's take a caller from South Africa. Tembelihle ukona ecingwane? Hello, Tembelihle Ndlovu, ukona ecingwane kumba uko? So I'm told there's a caller waiting on the line. Tembelihle ukona? Hello, Babas, how are you?
Yes, ngikona Dube.
Yes, funa ngamafitshane sibili utsho ukuthi kubona njani khonokho okwamnanga ukuthi ngapha kwelemele politika kanje masinya ngoba uhlelo wakhona lufitshane kakhulu. So 1 minute yakho
okay baba Dube ake ngithi kubeka amabili amathathu angiboni kunesidingo sokuthi le ndoda ibe lapho ngoba ziningi ezinye izinto ezenzeka lana eAfrika kade ngazilungisa kuqala phambi kokuba belapho fana nokuthi ucasa ngomunwe kahle kahle ngoba mase beqala ukukhuluma ama sanctions ukuthi yonke lento le yabonakala kudala nale ndoda isaphile ngumgazi kwakumele kukhulunywe ngayo lento yama sanctions phambilini abe upresident yena. So ke into ekhona kumele abuye ekhaya azolungisa into zakhe nabomakhelwane bakhe kuqala. Kumanje izizalwane zakhe zonke zila eSouth Africa ziyakhala zonke zikhaliswa uye abese siyakhuluma yena ngama sanctions akame kancane ngalento yama sanctions nabantu bakithi futhi bame kancane ngalento kuthiwa khona kufuka uvotwa kuvotelwa yena iZANU-PF vele yona ngwayo umthetho wayo yahle yaba liqembu ehleli winile namanje kungakavotwa seyiwinile bonke laba anabo lapho into abayaziyo ende badla bonke.
Yes,
ilizwe leZimbabwe mawungabheka line gold too much but liyahlupheka lisapply amanye amazwe into yokuqala liyamela bekwazi ukuyiphendula ebantwini bakhe.
Yes, siyakuzwa kakhulu Ndlovu, sibonge kakhulu ungadinwa lokusasa loke ngoba uThembele Ndlovu ukhona ngale kule South Africa. So amakholasi siyacela ukuthi lingene khonapha kuhlelo ukwenza ukuthi sixoxe sizwe ukuthi lithini. So let's read what people are sending on Facebook. VOA Shona, Grati Mutema says ZANU-PF must go. ZANU-PF has destroyed Zimbabwe. Then we've got Cindy Mutasa who's saying, you know what, there is a lot that is happening in the country and some people are talking things that are not proper. He's referring to Mr. Zwabare there. And then we've got other people as well who are expressing their opinions on this particular page. So siyafisa ukuthi libe kwazi ukuthi sikhona yonke indawo ukuthi mbuyele ke ku VOA Ndebele sizuthi abantu bathini. uFreeman Ncube uthi Xavier Zwabare into ezikhulumayo lezo zilunganga lokho akulunganga ngitsho siyakuzonda sibili okhuluma ngakho. So let's go back to Mr. Itai Marombeza. Mr. Marombeza, so you heard what Mr. Zwabare said, you know, about these sanctions and all those kind of things. So give us your take on that.
Yeah, ndichambotipinde neshona. Ndinokatyamadza kuti tine varume vakaita Zwabare vane dambudziko rekuti nezera ravo handizii vachiri kurarama munhoroondo dzekumashure dzekuti ZANU-PF yakaunza independence and so forth. Hazvibatire kuti tirambe tichitarisa chikamu chakaitwa chataakuverenga munhoroondo yenyika yeZimbabwe. Chatiri kukoshesa ndechekuti ndezvipi zviri kuitwa nebato ravo zvinoita kuti zvigutse ruzhinji kuti mumwe nemumwe ari munyika yeZimbabwe, ruzhinji rweZimbabwe ruwane rugaro rwakanaka. Iko zvino pakabva vaMugabe vaitaura kuti ivo vakuunza new dispensation. Kubva pakuutongi hwavaMugabe chii chavanga vakavimbisa chavari kuita iko zvino. Tiri kutoona kuti kudzvanyirirwa kwekodzero dzevanhu kwatopfurikidza kuri kutoenderera pamberi kupfuura kunyangwe nguva yanga ina vaMugabe. Zvinova zvavaitoziva ivo ndosaka vanga vakati varuda kuunza hurumende itsva ine new dispensation. Saka handizive kuti kana achitaura nhoroondo dzezvinhu zvisiripo zvisiri kuitika paground. ZANU-PF yaisimbotora mukana wekuti yaishandisa nhepfenyuro yeZBC nemaredio stations ayaikontrola ichinyepera vanhu. But iko zvino nenyaya yekuti kwaane social media manyepo ose nekuhwandisa mose mavanenge vachivhiringidza haachakwanisiki. Naizvozvo vazhinji kunyangwe neordinary person nyangwe kumamisha vanhu vaakuzviona pachena kuti hurumende iyi haina ruono kana haina chairi kukwanisa kubudisa chingaite kuti nyika yedu ienderere mberi. Saka naizvozvo nyaya yemasanctions yavari kutaura iyi inyaya yavanga vangogara vachishandisa kuda kuhwanda nayo, asi iyo sebato rakundikana. Kodzero dzevanhu dziri kumbunyikidzwa. Iko zvino hutsotsi hwanyanya makanzwa nyaya yavana meya wadya jena dziri kunetsa kuparliament zvose izvo zvinhu zvakuda zvagara zvanga zvichiitwa nemisangano iyoyu.
I'll cut you there short, Mr. Marombetsi, because there are some people who are sending messages, tons of them here, only that the program is a little bit short. So what Sipo Neshman Mlalas, who says ZANU-PF must go. This is posted on the Ndebele page. Aibongwe talente uthi kona izanu kumele iphume ihambe iphume phele. Buso kuyake uPhesi Mzizi uthi I think the change that we're waiting for is near. ZANU-PF and its leaders must step down. We are tired. Then Stabilo Moyo says evening lina lonke likhona pa siyalibingelela. Kuzobuyake uBrighton Siziba uthi izanu-PF kayiphume please. Sesikhathele ngayo. Let's go back to Mr. Zwabari briefly. Mr. Zwabari, I think we are hearing the sentiments of the people here. What is your comment on what people are saying?
Okay, you see, chinokatyamaza ndechekuti kana vangotaura nevanhu veMDC or CC, whatever name they call themselves, vakaita semuchinde anga achitaura. History yenyika handiti haina chekuita nekuti zvakaitika rini kana kuti gore ripi. Vamwe venyu vabva mukuchema Queen Elizabeth manje. She is as historical as they can come. Nezvinhu zvese zvaitwa nemaBritish ipapo zviri very historical. And it's their tradition and their culture. Zvinhu izvozvo zvinokosha. Saka kana ukanga usingazive nhoroondo yako, history yako, muchinda anga achitaura weCC uyu, une problem hombe chaiyo. ZANU-PF zvinhu zvairi kuita zvinobatika. Hapana munhu anodya ma-human rights pakati pako iyo nini. And ma-human rights are very relative in terms of their defined. ZANU-PF iri kuita zvinhu zvinobatika zvekuvhudza mumaruzevha. ZANU-PF iri kuvaka madhamu anobatika anooneka. ZANU-PF iri kugadzira maborder post akaita sebait bridge kuti kufamba kwezvinhu kweupfumi hwenyika nekuti tinoda kunge kuri nyore pakati pemabhodha South Africa neZimbabwe nezvinhu zvese zvatinounza. Kuenda kuna naMalawi. ZANU-PF iri kugadzira infrastructure yenyika kuti tienderere mberi, kwete zvanachavisa zvekunzi ma-human rights. Hapana anodya ma-human rights.
Right, Mr. Zwabari.
Ana jobs kana vapara mhosva vanokodzera kusungwa like everybody else.
We understand that. I've got a caller on the line, Mr. Zwabari. Sorry to cut you short. Caller, kunjani kuna hapo kona kule South Africa baba?
Ninjani wako?
Nyaphila nkhuluma lobani?
Khuluma lo Mr. Oswald.
Oswald, akutsho sibili ukuthi ubona njani konoko kuyenzakala khonapha kwele Melika. Siyabona ukuthi umnanga kungapha. Wena uphatha njani konoko?
Ya ngizwile ukuthi mnanga kongapha uzokhuluma indlela ama-sanction lapho. Lento le yayizwa phela ama-sanction le. Umnanga kwalento ama-sanction le into abazidalela bona bodwa zendaba zokuhlela abantu. Ukuthi sibe manje yithi kube manje lapho esikhula khona yiwo umnanga kwaleyo umgabe manje. So siyacela nje noma ngaze kukhuluma indaba zama-sanction mara okusala umnanga kwale crew yakhe they must step down.
So manje baphuma njani lingavoti phela baba Oswald?
Siyavota ngaregister ukuvota mina ngihamba ngevote ekhaya.
Singathi kungasebenza konke ngokubona kwakho.
Ya, kungasebenza mabangasibenza ngeke umsebenzi lo isiki yabo ekulika lena abajwayele ukuyenza.
Yes,
thina njenge-youth vele siphakame sibambaneni kungalathwa lo uNdebele lo umshona lo yini. Sibambaneni.
Yes, siyabonga kakhulu Oswald, ungathina kusasa sizakudinga ngesikhatshana esilandelayo. So I think we've come to the end of our show today. Thanks very much. We've come to the end of this show. Wish to thank our guests and listeners. Let's meet again next time. This is Gibbs Dube in Washington, D.C. saying good night, Zimbabwe.